أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Surah 17, Bani Israel, Children of Israel, Meccan period. Title. The title of this surah is derived from verse 4, where the expression, Children of Israel occurs. Then we clearly declare to the children of Israel in the book. This does not mean, however, that the surah focuses on the Israelites. The title of the present surah, like the titles of most surahs of the Quran, simply serves the purpose of marking it out from others. It is also known as Surah Al-Israa. Period of revelation. The very first verse indicates that this surah was revealed at the time of the ascension, Miraj. Now we know from a large number of reports in the works of Hadith and Sirah that the ascension of the Prophet, peace be upon him, took place about 1 year before Hijrah. The present surah, therefore, belongs to the group of surahs which were revealed during the last part of the Meccan period of the Prophet's life. Historical background. By the time this surah was revealed, the Prophet, peace be upon him, had already spent some 12 years calling people to monotheism. During this time, his opponents too did not remain idle. In fact, they left no stone unturned in their efforts to obstruct the way of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Despite this, however, the Prophet's message spread across the length and breadth of Arabia. Every tribe had at least some members who were influenced by the teachings of Islam. In Mecca, the center of the Prophet's mission, a band of sincere and devoted believers had come together and were ready to stake everything for the success of their cause. A sizable number of the Aus and Khazraj, the two most powerful tribes of Medina, had become the Prophet's supporters. The time had drawn close when the Prophet, peace be upon him, would move out from Mecca to Medina and avail himself of the opportunity to bring together the scattered body of Muslims and strive to establish a state based on the principles of Islam. These were the circumstances in which the Prophet's ascension took place. The present surah was revealed following that great event, expounding the message which the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave to the whole world. Subject matter. The elements of warning, exhortation, and instruction are all judiciously blended in the surah, each in their right proportion. The note of warning is directed at the Meccan unbelievers. They are asked to learn a lesson from the tragic end of the Israelites and other nations and to mend their ways, and to do so before the respite granted to them by God expired. For it indeed was about to expire. They are asked to embrace the message expounded by the Prophet, peace be upon him, as embodied in the Quran, failing which they would be destroyed and would be replaced by some other people. Moreover, the Israelites, who would be among the main addressees of the Quran during the Medinan period of the Prophet's life, are being asked to take heed and bear in mind the chastisement which they had suffered in the past for their misdeeds. They are also asked to avail themselves of the opportunity they had been granted as a result of the Prophet's advent. Were they to allow this opportunity to slip away, and were they to persist in their evil ways, they were bound to court disaster. As for the element of exhortation, it consists of explaining in highly persuasive terms what leads to true happiness and what leads to perditions, what leads to well-being and what leads to utter loss. Arguments and evidence are marshaled to confirm the soundness of the fundamental truths propounded by Islam, God's unity, the next life, and the position of the Quran as a dependable source of guidance. Additionally, the misgivings which were created by the unbelievers of Mecca concerning these fundamental truths are dispelled. These arguments are interlaced with laconic remarks reproaching the deniers of the truth for their follies. As for the element of instruction, it consists of enunciating certain broad principles of morality and collective behavior. These principles were to serve as the foundation for the right way of life, the establishment of which was envisaged in the Prophet's message. In other words, the surah spells out to the Arabs the manifesto of Islam at a very significant moment, just 1 year before the Islamic State was established. Thus, this surah provides the guidelines according to which the Prophet, peace be upon him, wanted to initially fashion the lives of his compatriots and subsequently of all human beings. In addition to all this, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is directed to remain undaunted in the face of the adversities which confronted him, and not even to consider the idea of striking a compromise with paganism. At the same time, the Muslims who were occasionally irritated by the persecution to which they were exposed by the slanderous propaganda campaign unleashed against them by the unbelievers, and by the petty and crooked arguments of their opponents, are urged to face the situation with calm nerves and patience. They are also directed to act with restraint in preaching their message and striving for reform. The Muslims are also required to vigorously engage in their own reform, in the purification of their own lives. In this regard, they are directed to depend mainly on prayer, which will equip them with the qualities that are becoming of those who strive in the cause of truth. According to traditions, this was the first occasion when the 5 daily prayers were declared obligatory and when their timing was laid down.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير.
Holy is he who carried his servant by night from the holy mosque in Mecca to the farthest mosque in Jerusalem, whose surroundings we have blessed, that we might show him some of our signs. Indeed, he alone is all-hearing, all-seeing.
1. The event referred to in this verse is known Miraj and Isra. According to authentic traditions, this took place a year before Hijrah. In the traditional and biographical literature, its details have been related by a large number, 25, of the companions. Anas bin Malik, Malik bin Sasa, Abazar Ghifari, and Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with them all, have related details of the event. Besides them, Umar, Ali, Abdullah bin Masud, Allah be pleased with them, have also related some parts of this event. In this verse, the Quran mentions only a part of the journey, i.e., from Masjid-i-Haram to the temple at Jerusalem. The object of this journey as stated here was that Allah willed to show his servant some of his signs. The Quran does not give any details other than this, but we find further details in the traditions, which are to this effect. One night the angel Jibril took Prophet, peace be upon him, on Al-Buraq from Masjid-i-Haram to Masjid-i-Aqsa, the temple. There the Prophet, peace be upon him, offered his prayers along with the other prophets. Then he took him towards the higher spheres, where he met some of the great prophets in different spheres. At last he reached the highest place in the heavens, and was received in audience by Allah. It was there that, besides other important instructions, 5 daily prayers were prescribed. Then he returned to the temple and from there came back to Masjid-i-Haram. During this journey, according to many traditions, paradise and hell were shown to him. We also learn from authentic traditions that on the following day when he mentioned this event, the disbelievers of Makkah scoffed at him, and some of the Muslims also were skeptical about this. The above additional details based on the traditions cannot be said to be against the Quran, for these are additions to the details given in the Quran. Therefore, the details related in the traditions cannot be rejected on the plea that they are against the Quran. Nevertheless, if one rejects any part of those details which are given in the traditions, one cannot be declared a renegade. On the other hand, if one rejects the details given in the Quran, one does become a renegade. There are different versions of this journey. Some say that this happened in a dream, while others are of the opinion that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was fully awake and went on the journey with his own physical body. Some others say that it was merely a mystic vision which was shown to him. The opening words of this verse, glorified be he who took for a journey his servant, however, clearly show that it was a supernatural event which was brought about by the unlimited power of Allah. It is quite obvious that if the event had been merely a mystic vision, it would not have been introduced by the words which imply that the being who brought about this event is free from each and every kind of weakness and defect. Again the words, took his servant by night, also show that this was not a dream or a vision but a physical journey in which Allah arranged that the Prophet, peace be upon him, should make observation of his signs with his physical eyes. Therefore, one is bound to admit that this was not a mere spiritual experience but a physical journey and visual observation which Allah arranged for his Prophet, peace be upon him. It is strange that some people are of the opinion that this extraordinary journey could not be possible, but now when man with his very limited power has been able to reach the moon, it is absurd to deny that Allah with his limitless power could enable his messenger, peace be upon him, to make this journey in the extraordinary short time it took. Above all, the question whether a thing is possible or not, can arise only in the case of human beings whose powers are after all limited, but such questions cannot be raised where the all-powerful Allah is concerned. Only such a person who does not believe that Allah is able to do everything can raise objections against this wonderful journey about which Allah himself says that he took his servant one night from Masjid-i-Haram to Masjid-i-Aqsa. Likewise, all the objections raised against the various details which are given in the traditions are frivolous, except two, which are plausible. First, if we accept these details, then we shall have to admit that Allah is confined to a certain place. Otherwise there was no need that his servant should be taken for this purpose to a certain place. Secondly, according to traditions, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was enabled to observe paradise and hell where he saw some people suffering from torment. The objection is, why should some people be awarded punishments or rewards before the final judgment after resurrection? As regards to the first objection, it is true that Allah is infinite by himself, but in dealing with his creation, he employs those means which suit his creation not because of any limitation of his, but because of the limitation of his creation. For instance, when he speaks to any of his creature, he adopts the same limited mode of conversation as the addressee can understand, though he has limitless modes of speech. Likewise, when he desires to show some of the wonderful signs of his kingdom to a servant, he takes him to the place where the signs are to be shown. It is obvious that the servant cannot see at one and the same time the entire universe as Allah does, for Allah has no need to go to any place at all for this purpose but the servant has. The same applies to the appearance of the servant before the Creator. Though Allah is not confined to any locality, it is necessary for the servant to go to the place where his manifestations have been concentrated for his observation because it is not possible for the servant with his limited powers to go in his presence in his infinite capacity. As regards to the second objection, it is based on the lack of understanding the thing. Many of the signs which were shown to the Prophet, peace be upon him, were symbolic. For instance, a small hole from which a fat ox came out but could not go back into it, represented mischief personified. In the same way the adulterers were shown as if they had fresh meat before them but instead of that they were eating rotten flesh. Similarly, punishments for evil deeds shown to him were only symbolic observations of the punishments in the hereafter so that he might see in advance the things which would take place in the hereafter. In regard to the Miraj, it should be kept in view that all the prophets were enabled by Allah to see his signs in the heavens and the earth according to their ranks. And for this purpose all the material curtains were lifted so that they could see with their naked eyes the unseen realities, to which they were required to invite the people. This was done so that the prophets could say with full conviction what they had seen with their own eyes. For this experience would distinguish them from a philosopher who bases all his theories on guesswork and cannot say that he bears witness to what he claims. In contrast to philosophers, prophets could say that they bore witness to the things which they presented because they had seen them with their own eyes. Point 2.
وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا.
We gave Moses the book and made it a source of guidance for the children of Israel, commanding, "Take no other guardian beside me."
2. As this verse has no apparent connection with the event of Miraj, it may appear to a cursory reader that either of the two verses has been misplaced here. But if we try to understand the matter in the context of the theme of the whole surah, we can easily understand the connection between the two. The main object of this surah is to give a warning to the disbelievers of Makkah. That is why the mention of Miraj has been made in the very first verse, as if to say, the person whom you dub as an impostor and reject the book sent down to him, has just now seen with his naked eyes great signs of Allah. So you should learn a lesson from the history of the Israelites who discarded the book of Allah and therefore, were given painful punishment. 3. The Arabic word wakil, guardian, denotes a person who is trustworthy and can be depended upon in regard to his affairs and may be turned to for guidance and help.
ذرية من حملنا مع نوح إنه كان عبدا شكورا.
You are the descendants of those whom we carried in the ark with Noah. He was truly a thankful servant.
4. That is, you are the descendants of Noah, peace be upon him, and his companions. Therefore, you should behave in a manner as behooves such people. You should make Allah alone as your guardian, for your ancestors escaped death from the flood only because they had made Allah their guardian.
وَقَضَيْنَا إِلَى بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ فِي الْكِتَابِ لَتُفْسِدُنَّ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَّتَيْنِ وَلَتَعْلُنَّ عُلُوًّا كَبِيرًا.
Then we clearly declared to the children of Israel in the book, twice you will make mischief in the land and will commit transgression. Then
5. The original Arabic word al-Kitab does not stand here for the Torah but for all the divine books. 6. Such warnings have been given in different books of the Bible. As regards to their first mischief and its evil consequences, the Israelites were warned in the Psalms, Isaiah, Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and the warnings about their second mischief and its severe punishments are found in Matthew and Luke. Given below are some extracts to confirm the statement of the Quran. Prophet David was the first to warn the Israelites in his Psalms of their first mischief. They did not destroy the nations, concerning whom the Lord commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen, and learned their works. And they served their idols which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters. Therefore, was the wrath of the Lord kindled against his people, insomuch that he abhorred his own inheritance. And he gave them into the hand of the heathen. Psalms, chapter 106, VV 34-38, 40, 41. The above events have been described in the past tense as if they had already actually happened. The scriptures employ this mode of expression to emphasize the importance of the prophesies. When this mischief actually came to pass, Prophet LSE warned them of its ruinous consequences. Our sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evil doers, children that are corrupters, they have forsaken the Lord, they have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger, they are gone away backward. Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye will revolt more and more. How is the faithful city become an harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Thy princes are rebellious, and companions of thieves. Everyone loveth gifts, and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Therefore, saith the Lord of hosts, the mighty one of Israel. I will ease me of mine adversaries, and avenge me of mine enemies. They be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves in the children of strangers. Their land also is full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. Moreover the Lord saith, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. Therefore, the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and thy mighty in the war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she being desolate shall sit upon the ground. Now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory. And he shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks, that this is a rebellious people, lying children, children that will not hear the law of the Lord, which say to the seers, See not, and to the prophets, Prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceits. Wherefore thus saith the Holy One of Israel, because ye despise this word, and trust in oppression and perverseness, and stay thereon. Therefore, this iniquity shall be to you as a breach ready to fall. And he shall break it as the breaking of the potter's vessel that is broken in pieces, he shall not spare, so that there shall not be found in the bursting of it a shred to take fire from the hearth, or to take water withal out of the pit. LSE, chapter 1, verses 4 to 5, 21 to 24, chapter 2, verses 6, 8, chapter 3, verses 16 to 17, 25 to 26, chapter 8, verse 7, chapter 30, verses 9 to 10, 12 to 14. After this prophet Jeremiah raised his voice when the flood of corruption swept away everything before it. Thus saith the Lord, What iniquity have your father found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity and are become vain? And I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land, and made my heritage an abomination. For of old time I have broken thy yoke, and burst thy hands, and thou saidst, I will not transgress, when upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest, playing the harlot. As the thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed, they, their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets, saying to a stalk, Thou art my father, and to a stone, Thou hast brought me forth, for they have turned their back unto me, and not their face, but in the time of their trouble they will say, Arise, and save us. But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can save thee in the time of thy trouble, for according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah. The Lord said also unto me in the days of Hosea the king, Hast thou seen that which backsliding Israel hath done? She is gone up upon every high mountain and under every green tree, and there hath played the harlot. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery I had put her away, and given her a bill of divorce, yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And it came to pass through the lightness of her whoredom, that she defiled the land, and committed adultery with stones and with sticks. Run ye to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem, and see now, and know, and seek in the broad places thereof, if can find a man, if there be any that executeth judgments that seeketh the truth, and I will pardon it. How shall I pardon thee for this? Thy children have forsaken me, and sworn by them that are no gods. When I had fed them to the full, they then committed adultery, and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses. They were as fed horses in the morning, every one neighed after his neighbor's wife. Shall I not visit for these things? Saith the Lord, and shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? Lo, I will bring a nation upon you from far, O house of Israel, saith the Lord. It is a mighty nation, it is an ancient nation, a nation whose language thou knowest not, neither understand what they say. Their quiver is an open sepulchre, they are all mighty men. And they shall eat up thine harvest, and thy bread, which thy sons and thy daughters should eat. They shall eat up thy flocks and thine herds. They shall eat up thy vines and thy fig trees. They shall impoverish thy fenced cities, wherein thou trustedst, with the sword. And the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven, and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away. Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Judah, and from the streets of Jerusalem, the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate. And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, Whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, Thus saith the Lord, such as are for death, to death, and such as are for the sword, to the sword, and such as are for the famine, to the famine, and such as are for the captivity, to the captivity. And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord, the sword to slay, and the dogs to tear, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the earth, to devour and destroy. Jeremiah, chapter 2, verses 5 to 7, 20, 26 to 28, chapter 3, verses 6 to 9, chapter 5, verses 1, 7, 9, 1, 5, 1, 7, chapter 7, verses 33, 34, chapter 15, verses 2, 3. Then Prophet Ezekiel was raised to warn them in time. Addressing Jerusalem he said, The city sheddeth blood in the midst of it, that her time may come, and maketh idols against herself to defile herself. Behold, the princes of Israel, every one were in thee to their power to shed blood. In thee they have set light by father and mother, in the midst of thee have they dealt by oppression with the stranger, in thee have they vexed the fatherless and the widow. Thou hast despised mine holy things, and hast profaned my Sabbaths. In thee are men that carry tales to shed blood, and in thee they eat upon the mountains, in the midst of thee they commit lewdness. In thee have they discovered their father's nakedness, in thee have they humbled her that was set apart for pollution. And one hath committed abomination with his neighbor's wife, and another hath lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law, and another in thee hath humbled his sister, his father's daughter. In thee have they taken gifts to shed blood, thou hast taken usury and increase, and thou hast greedily gained of thy neighbors by extortion and hast forgotten me. Can thine hands be strong, in the days that I shall deal with thee? And I will scatter thee among the heathen, and disperse thee in the countries, and will consume thy filthiness out of thee. And thou shalt take thine inheritance in thyself in the sight of the heathen, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Ezekiel, chapter 22, verses 3, 6-12, 14-16. Besides the above-mentioned warnings which were given to Israelites at the time of their first mischief, Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, warned them of the consequences of their second great mischief. In a forceful address he criticized their moral degeneration like this. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Matthew, chapter 23, verses 37, 38, chapter 24, verse 2. Then, when the Roman officials were taking Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, out for crucifixion, and a great company of people including women were following him bewailing and lamenting, he addressed them and gave his final warnings. But Jesus turning unto them said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves, and for your children. For, behold, the days are coming, in which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. Luke, chapter 23, verses 2830.7.